What concern should Americans, liberal societies, Western civilization have? What concerns should they have regarding the anti-Semitism within Islam?
The basic concern they should have is that we're getting the unreformed, unrepentant, foundational text, the theological anti-Semitism of Islam, the central anti-Semitic motif coming from Quran 3:112 and 261, which, for example, is literally the first thing you would see before you read even the preamble of the Hamas Charter. And it's the basic motif that the Jews are to suffer permanent abasement and humiliation for having transgressed the will of Allah and even slain the prophets, etc. That this motif is still being taught and sanctioned by the leading clerical authorities in Islam, including the current Grand Imam of Al-Azhar University, Sheikh Tantawi. He not only described and sanctioned this motif in his 700-page treatise on the Jews and the Quran and the traditions, the Hadith, the Sunnah, but he reiterated as recently as an interview in 1997 that, quote, the PhD thesis first came out in 1968-69. He's been Grand Imam of Al-Azhar University since 1996 through the present. He reiterated in an interview as recently as 1997, I believe, that, quote, I still believe in everything written in that PhD thesis. So we have the Muslim equivalent of a pope affirming, the most central and virulent anti-Semitic motif in the Quran as formulated, 1,300 years ago, and as explained and described in the classical commentaries from the Middle Ages, still living today.
But there's a lot that the Pope says that Roman Catholics don't practice. To what extent do you think that anti-Semitism is reflected in Muslim behavior?
We also have polling data from across the world, and maybe it's a stretch to correlate these things, but I think they are correlated, which show that anti-Semitism is rampant, not only in the traditional Islamic orbit, in both the Arab, Muslim, and non-Arab Muslim countries, where you have rates of almost 100%, they're in the high 90s, so virulent anti-Semitism. But we also see in the Muslim diaspora, or the Muslim immigrants into Europe, rates of anti-Semitism that are 8 times the European population, which has its own independent tradition of Islamic anti-Semitism. So using the Europeans as the denominator, we see 8-fold times the anti-Semitism in the Muslim immigrant population. Moreover, even though Muslims only comprise some 3 to 4% of Europe's roughly 500 million people, they, according to the EU Commission on Racism and Anti-Semitism, they commit fully 50% of the documented acts of anti-Semitism, violent anti-Semitism in particular, in Europe. So they're committing anti-Semitic acts at 25 to 30 times the rate of the indigenous European population.